Shrimad's divine grace, founder of Iskana Bhai, Sharanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki, their most merciful Lordship Shri Shriarakunja Vihari ki, Sri Jagannath Shri Baladev Mahesi Bhadra ki, Shri Kumritai ki, Shri Nathaji Shri Balagopal ki, Go bring all goodies to the assembly, all goodies to the assembly. All glories to the Lord, the Spirit of Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Ram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Shodayam Udirayan Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtaki. We're reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Text 55. Vijñan Atmani Samyojya Vijñan Atmani Samyojya Kshetragne Pravilapya Tam Kshetragne Pravilapyatam Brahmani Atmanam Adhari Brahmani Atmanam Adhari Gatambaram Ivambari Gatambaram Ivadmari Vijnanatmani Samyojya Vijnanatmani Samyojya Kshetragne Pravilapyatam Kshetragne Pravilapyatam Brahmani Atmanam Adhari Brahmani Atmanam Adhari Gatambaram Ivambare Gatambaram Ivambare
Vijnanatmani Samyojya
Vijnanatmani Samyojya Kshetragne Pravilapyatam Brahmani Atmanam Adhari Gatambaram Ivambare Vijnanatmani Samyojya Kshetragne Pravilapyatam Brahmani Atmanam Adhari Gatambaram Ivambare Vijnana Purified identity Atmani in intelligence Samyoja perfectly fixing Kshetragne in the matter of the living being Pravilapya merging Tam him Brahmani in the Supreme Atmanam pure living being Adhari in the reservoir Gata Ambaram sky within the block Eva like Ambare in the supreme sky Vijnanatmani Samyojya Kshetragne Pravilapyatam Brahmani Atmanam Adhari Gatambaram Ivambari. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Dhritarashtra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge of his qualitative oneness as a living entity with the Supreme Brahman. Being freed from the blocked sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky. Please repeat. Dhritarashtra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge of his qualitative oneness as a living entity with the Supreme Brahman. Being freed from the blocked sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky. Dhritarashtra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge of his qualitative oneness as a living entity with the Supreme Brahman. Being freed from the blocked sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky. Purport. The living being, by his desiring to lord it over the material world and declining to cooperate with the Supreme Lord, contacts the sum total of the material world, namely the Mahatattva. And from the Mahatattva, his false identity with the material world, intelligence, mind, and senses is developed. This covers his pure spiritual identity. By the yogic process, when his pure identity is realized in self-realization, one has to revert to the original position by amalgamating the 5 gross elements and the subtle elements, mind and intelligence, into the Mahatattva again. Thus, getting freed from the clutches of the Mahatattva, he has to merge into the existence of the Supersoul. In other words, he has to realize that qualitatively he's non-different from the Supersoul. And thus he transcends the material sky by his pure identical intelligence, and thus becomes engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the highest perfectional development of spiritual identity, which was attained by Dhritarashtra by the grace of Vidura and the Lord. The Lord's mercy was bestowed upon him by his personal contact with Vidura, and when he was actually practicing the instructions of Vidura, the Lord helped him to attain the highest perfectional stage. A pure devotee of the Lord does not live on any planet of the material sky, nor does he feel any contact with material elements. His so-called material body does not exist. Being surcharged with the spiritual current of the Lord's identical interest, and thus he is permanently freed from all contaminations of the sum total of the Mahatattva. He's always in the spiritual sky, which he attains by being transcendental to the 7-fold material coverings by the effect of his devotional service. The conditioned souls are within the coverings, whereas the liberated soul is far beyond the cover. Om Jnana-timirandasya Vyanjana Shalakaya Chakshusumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namah. We're seeing 2 different forms of liberation here. We have liberation from the material body. We have liberation from the contamination of our own mind and our own, desires for satisfaction in this material world. But now we're also merging into the oneness of the Supreme, is described as impersonal liberation. But here it's described as well that he is gaining pure devotional service to the Supreme Person, and he got this through Vidura's attachment to Krishna. Now, I found it quite a realization some few weeks ago that I was understanding that if Krishna was seeing Arjuna as so significantly a friend and expressing the appreciation of that friendship to Arjuna as the reason for his giving Arjuna this Bhagavad Gita, then look at us. He's giving everyone now in the entire world access to this Bhagavad Gita. But it goes greater than that. And it's revealed here in this verse. See, the devotee, while you're engaged in Krishna consciousness, that is engaged is the spiritual body, the spiritual being. Even though you're manifesting here with the material body, the soul itself is performing a spiritual activity that is in the spiritual realm, the soul is actually there. Krishna in the spiritual realm. Now, from one perspective, the totality of the summum bonum of the living entities that are in the material world are themselves contained within the spiritual world. But now we're saying that we, in this age now, Krishna's love is such that he has even chosen to give this so freely, the knowledge that he is giving through Bhagavad Gita to all the living entities now. Even though he was revealing that he was only giving it to Arjuna because of the closeness of the friendship that they had. But think about this now, going beyond that. Because see, what Krishna had previously revealed to those who were seeking impersonal liberation, to become Brahma, it is described that the soul has to have had 100 minimum births within a Vaishnava family, born into a Vaishnava family, to know the etiquette and the manner of living right, to reach the stage of Brahma. To reach the stage of Brahma. How much farther removed from that dwelling of Brahma is the spiritual world? And that's what he is making available to each and every one of the souls now in the material universe. Through this speaking of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, through this giving of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the life of Lord Chaitanya, and the giver of the laws for the golden age, he is the avatar. So see, as far as I thought that realization was about us being close to Krishna from revealing to us the Bhagavad Gita, still, even more so than Brahma himself, when we realize that he is giving us, making available to us that dwelling beyond the material universe, far beyond where Lord Brahma is dwelling. So, how much greater even then is that revealing to us how dear Krishna's love for us is, that reaches into this material muck that we have put ourselves into, indwelling within the body of mucus, pus, and blood. So far away from home, and yet Krishna is making available to us the very means of getting back to Godhead. So in effect, he's giving us more. Lord Brahma is going to be stuck here for the next 48% of Lord Brahma's life. He's going to be living in this dwelling for the continual existence of the entire material universe. So we, in that position, that makes us even more fortunate than Lord Brahma. Here he is, Namacharya, the very personality Krishna has set as the example, as the perfect example for the age, as Lord Brahma is, and yet we can get there to the destination before he does. Isn't that amazing when you think about it? Here is a statement in the Bible brought to mind: the first shall be last. The first shall be last. Who's the first? Lord Brahma. And when's he coming out? He's going to be the last one alive. See that? So that gives a total different meaning. All of these scriptures that we have previously exposed ourselves to take on a whole new, more complete meaning by our exposure to these divine scriptures spoken by Krishna himself. Because then we can see, with being able to see, as they say, oh, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? When I was a boy, we used to crawl through storm drains, like 8 feet big, round, concrete things that the rainwater from the streets drain into, and then they flow into what was the Rouge River here when I used to crawl through. So as you're walking through them, you're going through neighborhoods underground. But sometimes they have turns, and you turn, and then you look way far away, and oh my God, I can see light at the end of the tunnel. See, many of these scriptures give us a little view of what is at the end of the tunnel. A little bit of light. Bhagavatam is that light. And this is what it is itself, bringing us to the awareness of. Now, this merging that is being described in this verse. If a person lives their entire life without knowledge of Supersoul, without knowledge of the personal presence of Krishna, to be brought to that awareness of the very end of their life, that realization to them is that they're not different from the Supersoul. But as the devotee is preaching through his life, he distinguishes between himself and the Supreme Person. But ultimately, by our surrender, the Supreme Person is allowed to work through us. So in effect, we're denying ourselves our own career, our own opportunities that we think for our own purposes and everything else we would have otherwise established in our life. We've given Krishna the okay to take over our lives now. So in effect, we have become what Krishna, we will become what Krishna will work through us, versus what a person who lives their whole life for themselves, they live for 75, 80 years, and then they're brought to the realization that God is real. Then the concept of then becoming Supersoul or one with the Supersoul is introduced to them initially, because they have not had experience of this before. So this is, to some extent, the explanation that is being given of Dhritarashtra's experience for his going off. See, we see a little bit different when we see Dhruva Maharaj going off, or Prahlad Maharaj. They are in their beginning stages knowing that Krishna is supreme, and they live their entire lives with that same mentality. Dhritarashtra was living his entire life with the idea that he was the controller. And so now, Krishna satisfies all the desires, even of the Mayavadis. If they want to believe they're God, he lets them believe that. He gives them the ability to believe that. So they persuade themselves. And in many cases, by that pursuance, they themselves gain the ability to perform superhuman feats in this world, which also persuades many people of their superiority. And we have recent examples of that. Sai Baba was one such recent example. I forget his name. But some of these Mayavadis, they're able to perform superhuman feats. And for people who are very much attracted to those activities by their own desires to be able to display those activities, then they become attracted to those kinds of personalities. And there is warnings Lord Chaitanya gives for even reading introductory books into their darshan, because what they are giving is a completely different relationship with Krishna. Just as Dhritarashtra through his entire life was giving a completely different relationship to his sons as he was giving to the sons of Pandu, and a different relationship that he was having with Krishna. And he wasn't knowing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And being a blind person, he had limited access. Those great saintly souls that were giving him advice, he was rejecting the advice of. So here's another thing as well to take into consideration. When good advice is given to us by saintly souls, we should realize it's not up to that soul to keep repeating to us what that advice is, but we should, if we take their association as significant, then we will act upon what good advice they have given us. Otherwise, they may decide not to give us any more information. Now, there's a very good account in here of Maharaj Ambarish, who is a great devotee of the Lord. The king of this planet, Maharaj Ambarish, thus performed devotional service to the Lord, and in this endeavor practiced severe austerity, always satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his constitutional activities, he gradually gave up all material desires. Now, this is revealing his qualification for being in the position he was given, right? I am reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4, and that was verse 27. Maharaj Ambarish gave up all attachment to household affairs, wives, children, friends, and relatives, to the best of all powerful elephants, to beautiful chariots, carts, horses, and inexhaustible jewels, and to ornaments, garments, and an inexhaustible treasury. He gave up attachment to all of them, regarding them as temporary and material, being very pleased by the unalloyed devotion of Maharaj Ambarish. The Supreme Personality of Godhead gave the king his disc, which is fearful to enemies and which always protects the devotee from enemies and adversities. You can find out that this disc is already protecting you. You can find that out in these verses here. See how Krishna is making the devotees of this age the dearest most to him. To worship Lord Krishna, Maharaj Ambarish, along with his queen, who was equally qualified, observed the vow of Ekadasi and Dwadasi for 1 year. In the month of Kartik, after observing that vow for 1 year, after observing a fast for 3 nights, and after bathing in the Yamuna, Maharaj Ambarish worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari in Madhuvan. Following the regulative principles of Mahabhishek, Maharaj Ambarish performed the bathing ceremony for the deity of the Lord Krishna with all paraphernalia. And we do this regularly, as you probably know. And then he dressed the deity with fine clothing, ornaments, fragrant flower garlands, and other paraphernalia for worship of the Lord, with attention and devotion. He worshipped Krishna and all the greatly fortunate Brahmins who were free from material desires. Thereafter, Maharaj Ambarish satisfied all the guests who arrived at his house, especially the Brahmins. He gave in charity 60 crores of cows, whose horns were covered with gold plate, and whose hooves were covered with silver plate. All the cows were well decorated with garments and had full milk bags. They were mild-natured, young and beautiful, and were accompanied by their calves. After giving these cows, the king first sumptuously fed all the Brahmins. And when they were fully satisfied, he was about to observe the end of Ekadasi. With their permission, by breaking the fast. Exactly at that time, however, Durvasa Muni, the great and powerful mystic, appeared on the scene as an uninvited guest. After standing up to receive Durvasa Muni, King Ambarish offered him a seat and paraphernalia of worship. That means he worshipped him. Then, sitting at his feet, the king requested the great sage to eat. Durvasa Muni gladly accepted the request of Maharaj Ambarish, but to perform the regulative ritualistic ceremonies, he went to the river Yamuna. There he dipped into the water of the auspicious Yamuna and meditated upon the impersonal Brahman. You do that by chanting Om, by the way. In the meantime, only a muhurta of the Dwadasi day was left on which to break the fast. That's about 45 minutes. Consequently, it was imperative that the fast be broken immediately. In this dangerous situation, the king consulted learned Brahmins. The king said, to transgress the laws of respectful behavior toward the Brahmins is certainly a great offense. On the other hand, if one does not observe the breaking of the fast within the time of Dwadasi, there is a flaw in one's observance of the vow. Therefore, O Brahmins, if you think that it will be auspicious and not irreligious, I shall break the fast by drinking water. In this way, after consulting with the Brahmins, the king reached this decision. For according to Brahminical opinion, drinking water may be accepted as eating and also as not eating. O best of the Kuru dynasty, after he drank some water, King Ambarish, meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, waited for the return of the great mystic Durvasa Muni. After executing the ritualistic ceremonies to be performed at noon, Durvasa returned from the bank of the Yamuna. The king received him well, offered all respects, but Durvasa Muni, by his mystic power, could understand that King Ambarish had drunk water without his permission. Still hungry, Durvasa Muni, his body trembling, his face curved, and his eyebrows crooked in a frown, angrily spoke as follows to King Ambarish, who stood before him with folded hands. Alas, just see the behavior of this cruel man. He's not a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Being proud of his material opulence, and his position, he considers himself God. Just see how he has transgressed the laws of religion. Now see, he's accusing Ambarish of thinking he's God. But this whole process, Durvasa Muni is by him taking that impersonal perspective on the path he's on, to realize that he's God. And he's accusing Ambarish of that. This is the perspective today Mayavadis have toward us who see Krishna as God, okay? So there's a different path being explained here. Maharaj Ambarish, you have invited me to eat as a guest, but instead of feeding me, you yourself have eaten first. Because of your misbehavior, I shall show you something to punish you. As Durvas Muni said this, his face became red with anger. Uprooting a branch of hair from his head, he created a demon resembling the blazing fire of devastation to punish Ambarish Maharaj. Taking a trident in his hand and making the surface of the earth tremble with his footsteps, that blazing creature came before Maharaj Ambarish. But the king, upon seeing him, was not at all disturbed and did not move even slightly from his position. As fire in the forest immediately burns to ashes an angry snake, so, by the previous order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his disc, the Sudarshan Chakra, immediately burnt to ashes the created demon to protect the Lord's devotee. This is the purport that Srila Prabhupada brings out that is not brought out by the verse itself. As a pure devotee, Maharaj Ambarish, although in such danger, did not move an inch from his position, nor did he request the Supreme Personality of Godhead to give him protection. He was fixed in understanding, and it was certain that he was simply thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the core of his heart. A devotee is never fearful of his death, for he meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead always, not for any material profit, but as his duty. The Lord, however, knows how to protect his devotee. As indicated by the words, Pragdistam, the Lord knew everything. Therefore, before anything happened, he had already arranged for his chakra to protect Maharaj Ambarish. This protection is offered to a devotee even from the very beginning of his devotional service. Kunteya pratinahi name bhakta pranayati. Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 verse 31. If one simply begins devotional service, he is immediately protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18 verse 36. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mukhyayishyami. Protection begins immediately. The Lord is so kind and merciful that he gives the devotee proper guidance and all protection. And thus, the devotee very peacefully makes solid progress in Krishna consciousness without outward disturbances. A serpent may be very angry, ready to bite, but the furious snake is helpless when faced by a blazing fire in the forest. Although an enemy of the devotee may be very strong, he is compared to an angry serpent before the fire of devotional service. You see how powerful the personal presence of Krishna is so much more powerful than all the most advanced devotees who are looking for Krishna's power. They want Krishna's power, they don't want Krishna. It's the same thing with Duryodhana, when he was given the chance to choose, do you want Krishna or do you want his army? And he chose the army. So this is our choice. You want Krishna's mystic powers and potencies? You want to be able to display all these abilities through the world, gain yourself, gain reputation for how great you are and how wonderful a person you are and all these things? You can have that. Krishna's offering it, and ultimately you want that, that's available. Or do you want Krishna as your friend, ultimately, and not have to fill your mind with all these thoughts about all these things we need? Just make Krishna our friend. And automatically, as Srila Prabhupada brings out, even in the very initial beginning stages of devotion, that protection is automatically there. Krishna is with the devotee to see before the events he will be faced with as difficulties. Even before those events he comes to, Krishna is there to protect him. So, this is, to me, wow. I didn't think it could get any greater, when thinking about how dear a friend Arjuna is to Krishna, and making that as qualification to give him Bhagavad Gita, telling him outright, I'm giving you this knowledge because of how close to friends we are, and then giving it to us, giving it to each and every one of us who are on. See, this is further revelation that Krishna is going to take this whole generation of the universe back to Godhead in the form of Lord Chaitanya. And that is how it's evident to me. He's sitting on the throne of Lord Brahma, which Lord Brahma has offered to him in the form here on the earth planet as Namacharya. Haridas Thakur, Namacharya. He is the Namacharya, the example of the Nama Avatar. Krishna, in the form of Lord Chaitanya, is the avatar for this entire age, to be adhered to, the instructions of which, following the instructions of, will give us the most immediate means of going back to God. And not to say that there are not other ways. There are many ways being offered, and many means of developing abilities. But Krishna is offering himself in the form of a friend, a friendship. By taking up these books and wanting to give them these others, you're making yourself automatically a friend of Krishna. And many times engaging people in lower relationships, you engage people in forms of neutrality. They don't even know what they're contributing to in some cases. When they offer you help, you may find yourself out on the middle of the highway somewhere with a flat tire and somebody pulls over to give you help. They don't know who they're helping. But by their natural activities that they have accumulated through their life, developing the desire to help others, now coming in contact with you, they've gotten the opportunity to be able to make a step in the direction of eternity by simply helping you fix your tire, because you're on the service for Krishna. You're doing what Krishna has asked you to do. So anyone that helps you is helping Krishna's purpose also. This is why beggars on the street that really have no reason to be begging are looked at as criminals. They're supposed to be, and they have the same ability with that begging propensity to ask, to promote knowledge, not to support the physical body that is a means of getting into hell. See, what we take from this world as our own, believing we are the owners of the world, we make ourselves to be thieves, when the world itself is not ours to own. It's not our world. It is Krishna. It belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom all things are coming. And so if we look at everything as ours, then we make ourselves out to be thieves. So what is the punishment for a thief? Dependent upon the magnanimity of the possession that he was hoping to gain. Isn't it? Robbing a bank causes more punishment than it would be for a child who steals a punishment to write a note to someone, steals a pencil. So all these levels, see, in some cases, the levels people reach in so-called spiritual paths make them that much farther away from the eternal path if that spiritual path has nothing more to offer than that which is in this material universe. And those rewards can actually prevent one, because when you are rewarded in this universe with the ability to dwell in the heavenly realms, these heavenly realms made specifically for the rewards of those who are there, those realms are not made for self-realization. Those realms are not there for going back to Godhead. Those realms are made for the reward of those living entities who are entered on those paths of austerity, required to gain entrance into those environments. But Krishna is, by his personal spoken word, by his personal association that he has given to those who have been on the planet when he was on the planet, and now those who he gives realization to about the presence, he is accepting darshan through in the form of the deity. So he is giving personal darshan to all those who are seeking that. And that will be the reward. If you seek God personally, that is what you will get. If you seek God's possessions to be made into your own, that is what you will get. And the two are not the same. Automatically, we are seeing a devotee is protected by Krishna's chakra. Now we see in Bhagavad Gita many warriors fighting against the person who gives all ability, seeking to gain possession of those astral weapons for their own good, for their own ability to gain control in the wars that they take part in. The same abilities that were gained by those who were on Krishna's side. Both sought with different intents. Both sought with different purposes in mind. Both sought with different desires by the pursuant. And so this gives us example, again, of profound teachings in these exchanges with Krishna that reveal to us the restrictions we put upon ourselves because of our own wants for our own way. This is what restricts us. Gotta have my way. It's that famous song, Frank Sinatra, I think it was, saying that. I did it my way. But everybody's doing it their own way and not realizing that's the problem. Because our way is experimental. So we take advice from the one who has already seen the coming and going of billions and trillions of universes, our manifestations of trillions and existences of the coming and going of billions of Brahmas. Krishna has remembrance of all of that. Can you imagine what time immemorial means when we talk about eternity? Our minds don't contain the extent that eternity means. And so when we say unlimited amount of souls, our mind doesn't contain what the meaning of that is, as limited as our experience is. So, similarly, in the instructions to us on how to live our life, if we analyze, just with common sense, the value of the advice of one who has been around and who has perfect knowledge and memory of everything that has ever happened, living inside the body of every living entity that has ever manifested in every universe there ever is. You imagine Krishna's consciousness. That's Krishna's consciousness. He gives us just to be able to see outside of what it is, what it would be like to be able to have the completeness of what every living entity is thinking at any time. But Krishna has that within his capacitance. We don't have that. It's hard for us to even contain within this one body, within this one mind, the conceptualizations of what eternity means, But then to get into the depths and the meanings of what the expansions of the size of this universe is, said to be within certain dimensions. So the universe is as large and expansive as it seems for us to be, is not even a speck within the totality of what the expansiveness of the eternal realm is. And is the eternal realm expanding? Krishna says that this Maha Mantra is, when we recite it, it is increasing that ocean of bliss. Increasing means producing that which wasn't there before, doesn't it? So we could say that it is everlastingly expanding. There's going to be an eternal amount of Kali Yugas and an eternal amount of universes emanating because of an eternal amount of souls having an eternal amount of desires to be fulfilled endlessly. And here we are in that midst of that, being made aware of the futility of the living beings trying to find happiness in that conglomeration of energy, which the material world is, that doesn't have itself the substance that we as souls are made of to know, in that it is knowing the self and the substance of the self that gives us realization of the original self, that person that Krishna is. And that is where devotional service brings that automatically. See, so many fringe benefits. When you get in the material world, when you get a good paying job, they have what's called fringe benefits. So you do your job and you get paid a salary. But included with that comes insurance. The whole family gets insured. Doesn't mean a whole lot today. Everybody has it. But it's a fringe benefit that you don't even have to take consideration of. Whereas someone who's working a job, otherwise it doesn't have the fringe benefits, they got to pay for their own. They have to fill out the paperwork, they got to find an agent. There's so much time, energy involved. That's what these impersonalists are doing in their endeavors to, in this world, find that which supplies happiness, success, satisfaction, these kinds of things. That's what their pursuits are. It's vanity. It's vanity, the lengths we go to try to find happiness from the things in this material world. But there's a distinct line between knowing the necessities of life that we need in order to perform our functions. So there's that distinction in Ishopanishad that we don't want to eat too much, but we also don't want to eat too little. We don't want to sleep too much, but we also don't want to sleep too little. In all these activities, then there's good advice given in the Bible. Let your moderation be known amongst all. So we're not fanatics, although from one perspective people might consider us fanatics because we are admittedly aiming to perform these deeds with pure hearts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we want pure consciousness, the kind that itself is able to conceive of that eternal realm we are heading for. And to taste, as we read from these very advanced literatures and most advanced psychological teachings in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we were reading from yesterday, to give us realization of the kinds of experiences we're having as perverted reflections in this world with one another that are only little tiny bits and pieces of the completeness we're supposed to be having with one another when our relationships are based purely on love of God. And so that is where we will find the completeness of the satisfaction we're looking for. When we are only taking that foodstuff that is offered to God, when we are only experiencing those relationships based on love of God, when we are only reading that material that has itself been spoken by God, and then our total experience will be that which is going to be eternally with God. Did you hug God in your mind today? Have you done something that might cause Krishna to be happy with you, or cause your idea of who God is? Krishna is explaining that ultimately all these misconceptions about him that people worship with their mind, still he's accepting it as that which is being directed towards him, even though they're misconstruing who he is. He's accrediting them with aiming towards him, even though they don't know that they're aiming towards him. And so people are giving Krishna different names. And they have such strong fanatical beliefs in their ability to know what that name is, they're willing to give up their life for that cause. One group of people, did you see what the Pope did? Pope just signed union with Islam. Did you know that? No? That means the entirety of the Catholic Church now is accepting Islam as bona fide spiritual path of perfection. And what I don't think the Pope realizes is that he will probably lose more than 50% of his own congregation by doing that. I would suspect very strongly, because there are enough people in the Catholic Church who have themselves read the Quran or parts of the Quran to know the end conclusions of the Quran are not the same end conclusions of the Bible. The end conclusions of the New Testament of the Bible are not the same end conclusions of the Old Testament of the Bible as revealed by those practitioners of the Old Testament, of the laws of the Bible, who executed the original teacher of the New Testament of the Bible. And how Christians don't see that as an act of enmity against their God, I do not understand. And how they can call this a Judeo-Christian nation when the two philosophies are so against each other. The same way with Islam and Christianity, and Islam and the Roman Catholic Church. Their teachings are exactly opposed to each other. The forms that they have taken in present day. Even though all spiritual paths have an original beginning, an original source. Desire by human souls, jivas, who have imperfect senses, has caused divisions amongst one another in the world by judging one another by their own preconceived ideas that they have been given, by that which they have been told and are believing is absolute truth. Absolute truth. Very strong word when you think about it. In one sense, has the meaning of unchanging, right? Is absolute. Can't change it. Yet, if we compare all the laws being declared by all the nations of the world as laws of God, we see contradictions. And yet, it would seem reasonable that within the person of God, there would be no contradictions in his own establishment of what is right and wrong. And therein is the problem of humanity. And therein is the understanding of the importance of the instructions given by Srila Prabhupada to read these books and understand, so that we get a proper, broader view, more open, realized view of all the paths given to mankind, for the benefit of mankind, not for the destruction of mankind. God didn't come to the earth for all of humanity to be destroyed, but for the purposes men have of destroying the world, for them to be deterred. And he will destroy them who seek to destroy others. So who seek to bring well upon mankind, God is giving the means to be able to do that. So we have a choice in our life. You want to do something good for humanity at large, in the purpose and fulfilling the purpose of God, or you want to kill those human beings who are against God's ways. That's also a purpose you can fulfill. Military acts that God has in the past okayed. But if we take his most recent incarnation, Lord Chaitanya, as guide for this age, for this present time of now. See, that's the problem with time travel. that they're conceiving of the possibility, that has to make there to be another now. In other words, there is no present now, right? That the now that we are experiencing is not the same now for everyone. There is an existence of another now. Right? Because the time that was existing at the time the events took place in the past, that was at that time now. For us to, from this now, to go into that now, which already lived, which already took place. My argument is that its record is only held as light. And the substance that we experience in the present is gross. Light is not gross substance. So if Krishna wants to enable us with consciousness to experience specific events within that doesn't make every other living entity that interacted at that time to have to go through those same experiences with us. For that to be our reality at the moment, God is revealing that to us. But everybody else doesn't change their now just because we are revealed another now at another time. Does that make sense? These are the conclusions I make, because I'm asking Krishna about this thing about, quote unquote, time travel. And even though there are billions and billions, countless amounts of universes going through what we call time, there is still a constant now, present, right? And you can't hold it. It's uncontrollable also, which is time itself in a sense. Present now is a sense of our experience of time, but it's ever escaping, not holdable. The present can't hold the present for a moment. It's gone every second you try to hold it. So this is a mysterious aspect of time itself, because we look at the passing of time and regard ourselves as able to table it, so to speak, or record it as that distance we've moved around the sun, so to speak. But without a sun, time still exists, isn't it? Time is still there, it's the passing of it. And its perception is consciousness. The perception of time that we have the experience of is the consciousness that we are having. And how is consciousness then limited by anything? So what's keeping us in this limited space we call the material world? What's keeping us here? Consciousness. So the difference between our existence in the material world and our existence in the spiritual world is consciousness. And that's what this process is giving us the ability to gain, the ability to experience, is Krishna consciousness. Supreme consciousness, all-powerful consciousness, all-loving consciousness, all-controlling. Krishna is. But we put ourselves in a place of servitorship to be able to know that supreme form that he is, and by serving that supreme force, then everything works for our good too. Then because we're serving that supreme purpose. I'm running over time, so any comments, any questions? any realization. I try to end class, and then what happens is you just keep these things come into your mind that you want to say more and more about it because it's endless, you know, this flow of knowledge, like Christ explained. There's a river of life that is willing to flow from us if we open the challenge of the channels of communication with Krishna. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a question. What is Mahatattva?
Yeah, the Mahatattva. That's the great truth, in a sense. The Maha is great, and Tattva is the truth. Okay. But that Mahatattva that is being referred to as Krishna, that Krishna is, he is the Mahatattva in one sense. But then the manifestation of the universes is actually a Mahatattva also. That's a good question. I have to go familiarize myself more with the meaning to be able to describe it more thoroughly. But it does mean great truth. See, everything that has ever happened is because the living entities that are taking part in every activity that ever has gone on in, they are truth. So they produce truth. And the history that there is called the Akash, all the reactions of the living entities that have been put into motion by their activities is building up in the Akash, or the external covering of the universe called the alter ego, the false ego. But see, living entities are engaging in that energy other than what they are. And it is only bhakti that enables the soul to engage itself in the same kind of energy that it is. And when people are engaged only knowing and realizing external energies, and they engage in those activities, they're engaging in an activity which is completely contrary to their own nature. So all these activities in the physical world are temporary and will be brought to an end. Even the reaction from them, they are contained within this material sphere, so that even those reactions that can be looked at as causing those that will have no end in the future, because one action causes another action. When you get hit by karma, then it can cause you to create more karma, right? So in effect, that's like an eternal force within a limited realm. So it's not really eternal. It's eternal simultaneously while it's not eternal. So that Akash makes up part of the Mahatattva. So the totality of what comes out of Krishna's body is making up the Mahatattva. And then what to speak of where that is dwelling in the spiritual realm, which is unlimited. So I guess that is the only way I know how to, the unlimited expansions coming from the body of God is all I know to be the Mahatattva. Jai. Any other comments or questions? Jai. Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.